Welcome to Drizzle Animations.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Horror is an enthralling genre of film. With the success of films such as It, Get Out, and Jigsaw, it's clear that a large portion of us enjoy a good fright. Many of us have a desire to be scared or frightened, taken out of our comfort zone, and horror films are our way of feeding this desire. They are an excellent way to feel scared without being in any danger. But there is one question the average person can't seem to answer. What makes a horror film scary? More specifically, what cinematic techniques can a director use to scare an audience? An effective moment in any sort of horror film requires a well-executed blend of camera direction, editing, and a plethora of other film techniques.
Why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
For this video, I'll be focusing on the short film Larry, directed by Jacob Chase, and I'll be going through the various techniques Jacob has used throughout this short film to leave the audience petrified. Immediately after the title card, an establishing shot is shown with the main character sitting alone in a parking ticket booth at night, which brings us to our first technique: setting. When you look at a majority of horror films, they are commonly set in places of unknown or places we feel safe. And this makes sense when you're trying to scare an audience. A big component of horror films is that the creatures in them invade places we feel safe or places where we already feel vulnerable. And considering our protagonist is alone at night in a car park, this characterizes him as vulnerable, and the possibility of a monster attacking him makes this scene even more terrifying. The composition of this establishing shot draws the audience's eye to the protagonist, while at the same time leaves an incredible amount of negative space in the frame, which also adds to the element of unknown. This environment makes the audience feel uneasy, as they have no idea if there is anything in the darkness that might want to hurt the protagonist. This, coupled with the minimal use of lighting in the scene, starts a crescendo of fear and unrest in the audience. The effective use of sound can also aid in building an intense atmosphere. For example, the sound in this opening scene, or rather, the complete lack of it. This minimal use of non-diegetic sound, and sometimes complete silence throughout the film, fills the audience with suspense, putting them on the edge of their seats as they await for a monster that may or may not attack. As the film progresses, the non-diegetic sound increases in intensity, and music is then added in, which helps escalate these feelings of suspense the audience will feel, further adding to their unrest. This effective use of sound and music can be combined with various camera and editing techniques to add to the distress the audience is already experiencing. An example of this is where we see our protagonist reading The Misunderstood Monster ebook. The director employs multiple point of view shots of our protagonist reading the book with jump cuts to pictures of Larry, as well as various keywords and sentences in the book such as "Larry lives behind a window, he can see you behind the glass." These frequent jump cuts, combined with the ever-increasing intensity of the music and reverse angle shots that show our protagonist's anxiety, shows that he is fearful of the possibility of Larry attacking him. This, in turn, makes the audience scared and leads them to empathize with the protagonist as we are experiencing his fear. The director continues to use point of view shots as our protagonist spots Larry in the car park and proceeds to zoom in on him with his iPad camera. Not only does this shot portray the protagonist as vulnerable, but the graininess of the iPad screen also indirectly adds to the mystery and suspense provided by Larry himself. The last technique I will explore is the use of jump scares in horror films. Some call the jump scare a cheap way to frighten an audience, and they are correct in many ways. Of course, a sudden loud noise and or a scary face is going to make you jump out of your skin. It's primal instinct. However, a jump scare shouldn't be used to simply startle an audience. They should add tension to the rest of the film by making us distrust any sense of safety we may feel. After one jump scare, the audience is left on a knife's edge. Each long pause, dark shadow, even every calm moment gives you a heightened level of suspense and fear as you begin to question everything the film presents. I believe that the director has used jump scares effectively in the short film, as they are very subtle and aren't simply there to scare the audience. The quick cuts and rapid sound changes help add to the tense atmosphere this movie has already crafted. Going back to when our protagonist uses his iPad to try and see Larry, after Larry disappears into the darkness, we are left with 10 seconds of build-up before the iPad is dropped and Larry is revealed to us in the center of the frame. The second Larry cracks his neck, the protagonist recoils in fear and hides in the ticket booth. The accompanying jolt of sound is unexpected, which also makes the audience jolt in fear. 30 seconds later, when the protagonist arises to try and look at Larry, two other people walk from the right side of the frame, both of them cackling loudly. Once again, the quick movement of these two characters, coupled with the incredibly loud cackles, helps add to the tension this movie has constructed. The final scare is a simple close-up of the iPad, where Larry reveals himself emerging from the iPad. This is the result of the crescendo of tension set up by the director. To successfully scare an audience, all the camera direction, editing, and music in a film needs to work together, otherwise it will fail to retain the audience's attention. This video was to inform you on some of the techniques used by filmmakers and directors to strike fear into an audience. Whether you are a filmmaker yourself or an audience member wanting a fright, now you know why horror movies are scary. Thanks for watching.